Welcome to New Life Live with host and founder of New Life Ministries, Stephen Arterburn. New Life Live is dedicated to transforming lives one at a time, thanks to the giving hearts of you, our listeners. Our goal is to provide you with wisdom from God's Word to give you hope and help in life's hardest places. If you have a question you'd like to ask today, our phone lines are open. Call 1-800-229-3000. That number again is 1-800-229-3000. Now here's Steve.
Hi there and welcome to New Life Live. I am really glad you're with us today. I've got a special guest. Many of you know who John Tesh is. He is, he's he's one of the great musicians. If you've never heard him, you go to YouTube and you just search for John Tesh Red Rocks, a great concert that he did there. Many of you know him as being one of these great voices from the Olympics, doing these amazing stories on folks from the Olympics. Some of you know him from Entertainment Tonight. Others know that he's married to Connie Selica, and many others just know that he's just one of the great, most faithful guys ever. And we're so thrilled to have him on. He's got a brand new book, and if you're on Facebook Live, and we're live on Facebook Live, here's what it looks like. John Tesh, Relentless. And we're going to be talking with John, and John has overcome and encountered so many challenges in his life, and I think it's going to be a great message for you during this time of challenge. And one of my favorite scriptures, I just want to start the program with this. It's, I know the Lord is with me. I will not be shaken, for he is right beside me. And I just want to say this to any of you who are, coming to grips with what we're all dealing with. No matter where we are, what we're doing, what we're going through, it's unique for everybody. Some of you are alone. Some of you have family members. Some people say we're going to have more pregnancies than ever as a result of this. Some say more divorces. Some say more murders of each other. Hey, listen, whatever it is, one of the great helps is this word acceptance. And I've talked about this before, and in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, one of the most profound things that's written there, and of course it can be profound because when Bill Wilson and Dr. Bob created the 12 steps, they said we got them right out of the big book. But he says that he discovered that acceptance was the answer to all my problems today. Now I just want you to think about that. It really is such a profound truth. No matter what we're dealing with, we have to accept this is my job. This is what I've got to deal with. And we have to accept responsibility for really doing some of the most difficult things in the most difficult of times. I'm working on 10 ways that we can all do well and overcome our fears and anxieties. And one of the things I was writing about is that some folks, here this thing is hit, and you just went through a divorce a year ago. You were diagnosed with cancer, and you've got 2 kids that are still out there, and you don't know where they are or what they're going through. I mean, this is just on top of some really tough stuff recently, and that's all on top of a childhood trauma of neglect or abuse. And so it is not easy for you, but I want you to know something. Acceptance also includes the fact that God is with you, wants to comfort you, and wants to strengthen you and provide for you. He never said that he'd prevent pain or struggle. He said, I will wipe away every tear. And I'm just hoping that this whole hour is going to be an encouragement for you. If you want to join us, it's 1-800-229-3000. And you can join me and John Tesh. I'll introduce John in the book right after this. He's one of those people I really respect. And we have a story with John. And John's been a great help to this ministry. So if you want to join us, 1-800-229-3000. You can view us at newlife.com. You can hear us on Sirius XM satellite radio. You can watch us on Facebook Live. But we'll do that right after this. Of course, John will be on the phone because, we're not doing stuff face to face here. We'll be back right after this. Come join us.
My wife had found me out and came home one weekend. She had revealed my secret. The only reason I was sorry at that time is because I had been caught. I had had the Every Man's Battle book for years and pulled that book out that weekend and found the phone number on the back and called it. And then a week later, I was at Every Man's Battle. It really gave me the start I needed for my recovery. I never had had that opportunity to sit down with guys I didn't even know and totally open up. The good thing was I was opening up to guys I didn't even know. So why did I care? Just lay it all out on the table. I have nothing to lose. You need to check it out. At least go online, check out what it's about, and take the chance and go do it.
If you're struggling, call us. There are people on the other end of the line who want to hear from you, who want to help you. We don't want you to go on struggling, but you got to take that first step. Just give us a call. It's 1-800-639-5433. It's 1-800-NEW-LIFE.
To find out more information about New Life or to order any of the resources mentioned on today's program, call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. Now back to New Life Live.
We're back to Steve Arterburn here. Our phone number, 1-800-229-3000. If you need some encouragement about anything you've been struggling with, be glad to help you with that. And let me introduce you to a great friend of the ministry and in this wonderful book. I'm holding it up here on Facebook Live. It's called Relentless. John Tesh, welcome, and thank you for joining us today. God bless you, my friend.
What? You too. What's up, buddy?
Well, you know, we're just adjusting to the new norm and the new reality here. And, you know, I can't think of a better book for folks that you've got a little extra time on your hand, maybe, because you're not watching, hopefully you're not watching a lot of television. But this book, the subtitle is so powerful, Unleashing a Life of Purpose, Grit, and Faith. And I don't know if everybody knows this, but you have just been through a cancer ordeal and come out on the other side of it. And from what I saw and what I've seen on video and read about, it took every ounce of relentless resilience and grit that you could possibly have. Can you talk about that a little bit? I think it's an encouragement for other folks.
Sure. And by the way, I had the greatest time with you. Thanks for inviting me to be a part of your meetings. We met on the USS Midway in San Diego. That was so much fun performing for you and your team. And you have great partners. And I've known. Sorry for the testimonial here to get started, but I've known Steve in the ministry for many years, and there actually is a chapter in the book, and I'm looking at I want to make sure I get it right. The Crack Den. It's chapter 31. And Steve.
Yes. Now, hey, just tell people about that first. It's so wonderful. And you know, when you performed for some of our supporters there on the Midway, the aircraft carrier. You gave us an update on this, and it was so encouraging. But could you let's just take a minute to tell that story, because It really is a story of hope and transformation.
Yeah. Well, I mean, first of all, what you did, and I'll never forget this, is that when I called you up, you know, out of the blue, really, and just said, hey, here's the story. We have a family member who's been through rehab, you know, 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
He's been, by his own admission, he's been an addict for 35 years. Connie's brother, Vincent Selecchia. And Gib and I, who this was, I guess, it must have been 12 years ago, longer than that. It was Thanksgiving, and we were talking about, oh gosh, we miss Vincent, and what are we going to do? And the rest of a lot of the family members were like, you know, we've already tried, you know, it's just no use. And then Gib and I had just seen Gladiator. And so we were like, we had all the quotes of Gladiator going. We said, we're going to do an intervention on Uncle Vinny. And you know, there was a bunch of eye rolling, and Connie got that look in her eye where she, you know, she's seen this before in my world, where it's like, oh no, here we go. And so she said, you guys can do this, but you need professional help. And so she was the one that did the research and said, New Life Ministries is what you guys need to partner with these guys. And I cold called Steve and just said, here's what we're doing. And it was just, I mean, you have yes on your lips, so you know, so obvious. Yes, we'll help you. And it was your facility in Phoenix, and the chapter in the book is, I hate to say this, but it's actually it is my favorite chapter in the book. but it's one of those adversity into victory chapters. And there's many of those in Relentless, but this one it's actually humorous in sort of if you have a dark sense of humor, because it came out great. I mean, right now I'll give you the ending. Is that Vinny and his girlfriend Kathy are clean and sober for half a decade, and they're over-the-road truck drivers, and and they tried everything. We tried everything, and this trip to New Life and this adventure, which you can read in the book, it worked. And it worked because we just can continue to show love, and also because we had experts involved. And I make the point in the book where if you're like, I'm going to do an intervention, I've seen these on TV, you can make things worse. And we realized that if we didn't have guidance, that it could crash and burn, and we could do more damage. But just living 40, my son and I, living, it was like a father-son weekend. Spending 48 hours in a crack den and trying to get Uncle Vinny out of this thing. It was bigger than Promise Keepers, and we like Promise Keepers, so that's in there. But you and I are linked by that, and always will be. And it was just because you just said yes. I hadn't even met you.
But here's the cool thing is you guys supported him. You did. I mean, you were there 3 days or 2 days before he ever got on the plane to come back. But the outcome of he's sober, but he's helping homeless people now. There's your transformation from being the problem to helping other people with their problem. I just love that.
Yeah, and it's because on the other side of you're the expert here, but on the other side of addiction, you're so excited and you're so fired up. And he found something to plug into. He's always had a heart for the homeless and homeless veterans. And so what they did was they formed this thing called Intelligent Kindness. And so when they were out, and what better place? You're an over-the-road truck driver. He and his girlfriend, they're both drivers, right? And they watch North America go by, and they'd see something, and with the eyes of an addict, ex-addict, they were able to see things that we didn't have that kind of vision. And they did, and they used that vision to speak people's lives forward and to help them.
Well, it's exciting, and you at our 25th anniversary, you came and you told that story, and then to hear about it again another 6 years later, and that he's doing so well. But I want people to know that you have really overcome one of the most difficult challenges that any of us ever have. You have overcome cancer. And can you talk about that a little bit? Because, man, you looked like, in some of those pictures I saw, you were about to die.
I was. In fact, I was given an ending date for sure, and that was what happened was in 2000. And men who are listening to this and their wives, because this and you'll see this in the book, or you can hear it because I read the book too. But it ended up being a love story between me and my wife, Connie Selica, as you mentioned. And in 2015, I went for just a routine exam with my general practitioner, Dr. Steve Galen, in Los Angeles, and did the whole thing, and listening to the heart, do the EKG, lungs, all that, and then did the PSA test. And I think everybody knows what a PSA test is. It's a prostate-specific antigen, and you look at that, and you can tell what the shape of the prostate is. And mine, for 5 years, my number had been 0.4, and that's, unless it's up around 5, 6, 8, 10, whatever, or it changes, there's really nothing wrong with your prostate. So everybody thinks. But mine ended up being, what happened was he did the rest of the exam, and there are some doctors, and that's why I like talking about this, because there are some doctors and some men who are uncomfortable with this exam, the digital rectal exam, digits meaning your fingers, of course. And so when he did, he was he's an old school guy, so he said, no, we're going to do this exam, and in the middle of it, he said, wow, there's something different here, John, and something different ended up being, well, let's go for a sonogram, and then the sonogram found something, and then it was like, well, let's just do a biopsy on your prostate, and the biopsy came back, and I had hit the jackpot. It was 4 Gleason 9 tumors, and all you need to know about it is Dr. Gleason came up with the scoring, right? And I had so 9 out of 10, which means that when they look at the tumor tissue, they look at the tumor tissue under a microscope, they see poorly differentiated healthy cells. meaning that they can't tell. Of course, they can't tell the good cells from the bad cancer cells, and the prostate gland is a multifocal gland, which means that it always makes more than one tumor. So I had 6, and 10 years ago or so they didn't operate on Gleason 9s. They said, well, here's a bunch of chemo, good luck. And what the doctor said in the exam after the biopsy was, he patted Connie. I'll never forget it. I could see it in my eyes, in my head. He patted Connie on the back and just said, I think you guys need to try to make lemonade out of lemons, and get your affairs in order. And then we sort of pushed him, and he said, well, I can, anywhere between 18 months and 2 years. And listen, if anybody's ever been blindsided in a football game or a lacrosse game, which is what I played, and I use that analogy in the book, that's what it felt like to me. I just heard a high-pitched squeal, and I looked at Connie's face, and for the first time in 25 years, she looked scared. And it was that was a journey that included. The next step was to Johns Hopkins for a radical prostatectomy, and then to Northwestern, and then to MD Anderson. This was like I said, it was in 2015, so this was a 3-year journey of trying to get this cancer out of my body, and it had erupted out of the prostate into the lymph nodes. I think the biggest mistake, Steve, you and I talked about this at dinner in your last event. The biggest mistake I made was I became a cancer patient. And this is, you said that this book, it's an interesting time for this book to be released during the coronavirus. It's true, because we can't become victims, right? And so my dad, I'm convinced that I manifested the cancer in my body, because my dad was 63 years old when he got cancer and died. Of course, I knew that, and I got cancer at 63 years old, almost to the same month that my dad did. And so I looked back on that, connecting the dots, even in writing the book, and realized that I'd been speaking about cancer and that 63-year-old date, that year in my dad's life, for my whole life, and was always worried about it. And so when I got it, I became a cancer patient. I talked about myself as a cancer patient. I talked about my cancer, my treatments, this. I was a terrible dinner party guest. And, if you've read the book, there's a chapter called Pity Party, where I just descended into hell. And I lost 30 pounds. I was drinking Scotch whiskey. The doctor was giving me, opioids too. So I was like one of your favorite characters, right? I was addicted, but I was the worst kind of addict, because I felt like I deserved it, So that was really, that was the worst part of that whole journey.
Okay, so I think this is a really a great truth for everybody today, and that is, you don't want to ever become the diagnosis. You don't want to ever become the label, or whatever, the disorder that people have put on you. And, during this time, you don't want to become the crisis or the virus. You want to say, this is part of my life. This is not my life. And John, I think you did that. Now, here's something that I want everybody to get. What was it that caused you to go from being a cancer patient to taking control of your life, accepting the reality, and living in a different way? What was that touch point, or that change point there?
Understanding that God wanted me well. Connie and I were in a church service out in Calvary Chapel with Jack Hibbs, and there was a friend of ours there, and who had just recovered from cancer, and she handed me a CD, and it was a CD of a teaching of a guy who's become a friend of mine, Andrew Womack, and he has a Bible college out in Woodland Park, Colorado, up in the mountains, and he was just teaching the scriptures differently than what I had learned when I was growing up in the Methodist Church on Long Island, and that was just that God. What he taught was that God didn't put sickness on people. God's nature is that He wants you well, but also understanding that we live in a fallen world, and that there is sickness here that is of Satan, and there are diseases. I mean, the virus. I don't believe personally that the virus came from God. I believe it came from the pits of hell.
There you go.
And it was about speaking words of faith over yourself. And there's. Even I had this conversation a few months ago and even Dr. Caroline Leaf, the neurologist who talks about this at the quantum level, worry right, can make you sick. Speaking worry can make you sicker. And so when we started, Connie was just so great. I mean, she should have taken a break from me and just said, listen, I need a couple of months by myself. But she stood hard, and we worked together to speak words of faith over me.
Okay, so when we come back, if you got a question for John, we'd love for you to call us 1-800-229-3000. But some of you have struggled, and you have a diagnosis, and maybe it's terminal cancer, whatever, and it doesn't look good, and it doesn't seem like there's going to be healing in this lifetime. I don't want you to be in despair or think you're second-rate Christian or God isn't in your life, because hey, we're all going to die. I mean, there is going to be a death. So we want to give you some encouragement too, because not everything has a good, happy ending, but we want it to have the best ending possible.
For years, all I did was focus on my husband, and my needs were unmet because of his sexual addiction. The counselors focused on him, and all the books I read were about him and how to help him.
My name is Shelly Martinkus, and I want to personally invite you to the Restore Workshop. If you have been affected by betrayal, it might be that your husband has been looking at pornography, it might be an emotional, physical affair. I would love for you to come join us.
This weekend gives me permission to now focus on me.
You will leave with hope, with a community of sisters ready to support you, and you will also leave with tools to move you forward on this journey.
I am so thankful to New Life for giving me what I know now is going to be a new life.
The Restore Workshop is coming to Dallas June 26th through the 28th. Call 1-800-NEW-LIFE to find out more. That's 1-800-639-5433 or online at newlife.com.
Hi, this is Steve Arterburn, and for 30 years, New Life has been the most trusted name in Christian counseling.
I'm an addict, and I'm trying to get God in my life again.
You seem to be able to get to the crux of a problem quickly.
Our Christ-centered treatment programs can help you break free to embrace all that God has for you and your family.
I just want to thank you guys for bringing me to a relationship with Jesus.
There really is help for marital problems, depression, addictions, panic attacks, and feelings of hopelessness.
I came back with so many tools to help me prepare myself to fight this struggle and this battle that I have every day.
You can start living again today, living the life God intended for you. Help is available at 1-800-NEW-LIFE.
They did care, and they did follow up very lovingly, and it made all the difference in my life.
Call us at 1-800-NEW-LIFE. Someone who cares is waiting at the other end of the phone. God can open the door to a better tomorrow right now. Just call us at 1-800-NEW-LIFE. 1-800-639-5433.
We'd love to hear from you. If you have a question or a comment, call toll-free 1-800-229-3000. Now back to New Life Live.
We're back to Steve Arterburn here, and before we go back to John, I want to mention to everybody that Club New Life sustains this ministry, and $30 a month. If you were to say, okay, I'm going to just step out in faith in the midst of all of this fear and things like that, here's what we would give you as a welcome gift. We would include the Life Recovery Bible in what we call our transformation packet, the Life Recovery Workbook, and the Life Recovery Journal, as well as our brand new workbooks to go through life recovery on grief, eating disorders, sexual integrity, and there's one on divorce, because many times we've got these other issues than addiction, and life recovery can apply to all of those. It's just our way of saying thank you for being part of our ministry. If you want to join Club New Life and get all the benefits, you call us at 1-800-NEW-LIFE, and it's also the place to call if you'd like a copy of John's book. We have it, and we would love to share it with you. 1-800-NEW-LIFE. The title is, it's a great title, and I love the subtitle, but it's Relentless, and John is in his faith, and then the subtitle, Unleashing a Life of Purpose, Grit, and Faith. Now, I want to go back to John here. John, here's a scripture, and I think it really speaks to what you're talking about, where Philippians 4:8 says, "And now, dear brothers and sisters, one final thing, fix your thoughts on what is true and honorable and right and pure and lovely and admirable. think about these things that are worthy of praise, and there's not 1 ounce of worry or despair in there. That's what you're talking about, right? You started to change your thoughts from worry or diagnosis to a different perspective. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, it's just right on. And Dr. Caroline Leaf, who wrote the book Switch on Your, and she speaks in churches all over the world, Switch on Your Brain, the key to peak happiness, thinking, and health. She even says, what you are, quote, what you are thinking every moment of every day becomes a physical reality in your brain and body, which affects your optimal mental and physical health. These thoughts collectively form your attitude, which is your state of mind, and it's your attitude and not your DNA that determines much of the quality of your life. I was stunned when I found out, Steve, that only 5% of the DNA that you were born with determines how long you're going to live, what you're going to do, and that now the study of epigenetics, right, where you can actually lengthen the telomeres, your DNA, you have control over 95% of your body, and it's clear to me that when I spoke cancer over myself, that hey, we all have errant cells, bad cells in our body, right? But whether you call them forth, what is it? Romans 4:17, call forth those things that be not as though they were. You could call forth health, you can call forth recovery, or you can call forth addiction, or you can call forth cancer, as I did. So I love fix your thoughts on what is true, and that's one of the big things I learned when I was studying Scripture, because I was yelling at God and begging God, and I was so upset with God for quote unquote putting this cancer on me. But I realized that it's not enough to have faith. And then people are like, wait, what? What are you talking about? You have to have a lack of unbelief. And that's what was happening to me. Is I had faith. I had people around me who were laying hands on me, and I was praying, and I was manifesting health, in my future when I could. But then I was dead again. It was like, wait, what if this happens? What if that happens? What about this? And I was interviewing Dr. David Katz from the Yale Prevention and Medicine Center just the other day on our Facebook page, and he's an old friend of mine. And I said, David, just give people something to do. And he said, and this is a secular guy, and he said, you gotta every now and then you gotta look away. And I said, what do you mean? He said, because every time you watch the news and there's something on there about this virus, and there's going to be, I know this because I did local news for 12 years, right? And it's going to be the same story, but every time you see it, it registers as a different moment in your brain. He goes, just look away every now and then. And you said it, when you look away and then you fix your thoughts on what is true, it has a profound effect on your whole body.
Yeah. All right. Let's take a call. I think Tina is calling us from KGFT, Colorado Springs. Tina, I think you have a comment. How you doing?
Good. How are you? I so appreciate what you all do, and been a long-time listener and supporter.
Thank you, Tina.
Just quickly wanted to say, I've been, my dad died when I was young, and since then, 9/11, we moved back there, worked with so many grief people here in Colorado. I do so many things with the church for grieving people and people walking through, illness and dying. And I just wanted to kind of put out a thought of, I love your story, but not everyone who, I've had so many people who are positive and trusting in the Lord, and it's not from God, the bad things that happen, but there's still really good, happy, positive people that their story doesn't end so positively anyway.
Yeah.
So I just kind of wanted to put that out there for you all to encourage people that that's not what you're saying, and I know it's not what you're saying, but I thought maybe someone needed to hear that from you as well.
Well, Tina, what John just said, but right before, when we came back from the break, he wanted to be sure people, his thought is, and it's mine too, that these things don't come from God. We're very quick to say, oh, look what God is doing to punish us. And my brother died from AIDS, and I remember when that happened, and everybody saying, well, this is a punishment from God. And I've said this on the program many times. If that's the way God dealt with us, there would be no one alive on the face of the earth right now, because we're so John's point that this sickness comes, I think, as he said, from the pit of hell. It's a fallen world, it isn't from God, but God has something to say about it.
For most of my life, I've been dealing with an opiate addiction.
Why is opioid addiction quickly becoming one of our nation's biggest killers? Maybe it's because it isn't only those who are addicted who are in denial.
We did what I see so many parents do, is it can't be an addiction. There's something medically wrong.
It's impossible to solve a problem when you don't know what you're up against, and families will try to find any explanation except the one that will put them on the right path.
Alcoholism and drug addiction is a family disease. It doesn't affect just the individual.
If someone you love is abusing painkillers, know what you're up against. It's time to admit it's addiction and seek treatment. Call us today at 1-800-NEW-LIFE. We have Christ-centered partner treatment centers around the country. Call 1-800-639-5433 or visit us online at newlife.com.
We just made a decision. We will do whatever it takes.
1-800-NEW-LIFE.
Hi, this is Steve Arterburn, and for 30 years, New Life has been the most trusted name in Christian counseling.
Your ministry has saved my life.
If you struggle with emotional hurt, family or marriage problems, the pit of depression, or the pain of addictions, we can help.
I'm down 100 pounds now from what I was.
You guys are awesome. You're a blessing to America.
Our treatment programs provide clinically appropriate solutions from licensed professionals, all in a biblical framework.
I have had problems with alcohol. I think God has ordained this place to be His.
You don't have to be a prisoner of your pain. Help is available at 1-800-NEW-LIFE.
She tells me that I'm a new man, and I feel like a new man.
It worked for me, and it can work for them too.
This time it is different.
If you're ready to take the first step toward genuine spiritual and emotional healing, please call us today at 1-800-NEW-LIFE. God can open the door to a better tomorrow right now. Call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. That's 1-800-639-5433.
We're glad you joined us for New Life Live. To be a part of the program, call 1-800-229-3000. Now back to New Life Live.
We're back. Steve Arterburn here. And John, Tina is making that point about, a lot of really great people, good folks are struggling. And what do you say to her? You can just talk directly to her and that concept of when bad things happen to really great people.
I think that, and I can only speak just personally, I think that there's a guy named, I'm sure you even knew him personally, but M. Scott Peck wrote The Road Less Traveled. And I was given that book when I was going through another struggle. I was married before Connie and I were married, and I was just a mess. My dad was dying, and I'm not giving an excuse for a failed marriage, but I was making decisions without talking to God. I was making decisions without talking to good people, even therapists. And somebody handed me this book, and The Road Less Traveled, and the first line in the book is "Life is difficult," and then there's a period after it. I'm like, wait, what? That's your book? And he went on to say that we're such a mess when it comes to understanding what's going on in the world and our place in it, and where we're supposed to find happiness. And I'm sure you deal with this. I know you deal with it every day on the radio and in your books and in your meetings. But and then it was however you feel about Jordan Peterson. He talks about how we have to understand that life is suffering. And so when I was diagnosed with cancer, and I said, well, I led a good life. I'm a Christian. I led worship in the Messianic Church for 15 years. God, why me? I have a ministry. Why me? And I realized after almost destroying my marriage, and that's in the chapter called Pity Party, and destroying my family by just feeling sorry for myself. But I understood that, okay, this whatever it is, this is suffering, and so I need to do. I may not make it through this, but I need to pull my bootstraps up. And listen, I'm not saying this is anybody but me, but I was feeling I was feeling pity for myself, and I was feeling selfish, and I understood that I had to give it my best shot, right? And we haven't gone through this story, but when I was 19 and a half years old, I got thrown out of college for trying to change my major illegally. I got suspended, and then my parents threw me out of the house because they were shamed by this. And then my girlfriend broke up with me, so I was in a pup tent, not with a disease, right? But I had burned my ship.
I remember this story.
For 6 months working construction, realizing that my life was over. And finally, God spoke to me in the middle of the night. And the only prayer I knew at that point was the Lord's Prayer. And God spoke to me and said, listen, this is the part of the Bible, faith without works is dead. Where I'm here, but you better just get up and do something, And that's really where I was during my suffering. And when you were in the middle of chemo and you got four lines in your arm, and you're just retching and you can't, and then all of a sudden some kid comes in and sits next to you and they've got 8 lines of chemo and they're 8 years old, sits next to you. So just understanding that suffering is real, and especially you call her, I forgot her name,
Tina.
But Tina, I understand what caregiver fatigue is too, because I see my wife going through it, and I see a lot of people, who are at the senior home where Connie's mom is, and Steve can speak, very intelligently to what you need to do when you've got caregiver fatigue. But that's also a form of suffering when you're helping people to the point where you just can't help yourself anymore. So I don't have the answer. All I can tell you that was my only choice after my ships had been burned were to go forward and fight the battle.
Well, I appreciate all that you said there. Tina, how does all that sound to you? What do you think?
So great. And I love that you all are reaching, not just those who are hurting, but those who are helping those who are hurting. And so continue on. Thank you so very much. I really appreciate you all.
Thank you, Tina. Let's go to Mary here real quick and see what Mary has to say. Mary, you're on. I think Mary listens on Sirius XM. Hi, Mary. Welcome, and you're on with John Tesh.
Hi, Steve. How are you?
I'm doing all right. How are you doing?
Great, Steve. I just wanted to call in, and I have recently been diagnosed with Lyme disease, and just listening to John today and this morning even with the coronavirus, and my doctor sent out an email and said, for all you Lyme patients, just realize this could take your life. If you get this, you're so immune compromised, it could take your life. And, I just put that email to the side. And just hearing John, I think that this was divine for me today because, I have got my identity that I'm a Lyme patient. Instead of saying I'm recovering from Lyme, I can recover from Lyme. I can do the right thing so my immune system can fight this. And God is sovereign. And if this is what God wants to take me home, well, praise the Lord. And if he doesn't want to take this, let him be glorified in the midst of this. And but just that mindset, I think, is just so important. I mean, I think we just start saying to ourselves that I have Lyme, I'm always going to have Lyme, it affects me badly, I can't enjoy life, and I just need to change my mindset. So thanks, John, for the encouragement and just the words of wisdom today.
Boy,
now, Mary, I'll send you a copy of the book.
Yeah.
Go ahead, John.
Yeah, I got excited. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
And I want to just come underneath that and say, man, I had every high-end doctor at Johns Hopkins and MD Anderson. I love those guys. And this is really important. And this is what I'm about to say is controversial. And Steve and I have conversations about this, but I'm just going to tell you what worked for me. And that is, it's speaking your future, right? I'll say it again, Romans 4:17, which is, God who quickens the dead calls forth those things that be not as though they were. And that's in reference to Abram, who became Abraham. But if I hadn't had faith, it's really dangerous. Well, let's start here. What happened was when I didn't finish my cancer story, which what happened to me was I'd be good for like 3 or 4 months, and then they say, well, come back for your scans, right? And then they'd find a lymph node that lit up, and then they'd do a biopsy, and they'd stick a 16-inch needle in my hip and get a sample of that, and then they'd, okay, now you need more androgen deprivation therapy, taking the testosterone out of your body because prostate cancer loves testosterone, it feeds on it, right? And then I'd be good, they'd zap that, and then I'd come back and another PET, radioactive isotope PET scan. We found something that lit up, and so finally I end up at another hospital in Los Angeles. This is in the third year of my treatment, of my journey, and they said, well, we think we see something in your pelvis, and we're not sure what it is, but our recommendation is that we basically carpet bomb your pelvis with 56 treatments over a 7-week period. We'll map out, we'll tattoo your pelvis, and we'll map out this this 3D diagram of your pelvis, and then we'll hit it with all these radioactive treatments. Now you may lose. This is me and Connie's in the treatment room at this point, talking to the doctor privately, and he says you may lose bowel function, you may lose kidney function, bladder function, you may lose sexual function. But probably not 100%, And so he's going through this whole thing, and all of us, and during that period of time, Connie and I had been studying the Bible and praying and understanding how, what that God wanted me well, and also landing on Mark 11:23, which I'll give you in a minute. And we had that look at anybody who's ever seen the movie The 300, where the King Leonidas, it's really a guy's movie, but King Leonidas looks back at his queen and has to make a decision for his Spartan compatriots, and they both sort of raise an eyebrow, and instead of acquiescing to the Persian messenger, he kicks them into the well and then starts the Battle of Thermopylae. That was the look that Connie and I shared at that moment when we knew that we were done, and that faith was the only thing that we're going to stand on. And again, important safety tip, if I hadn't had faith for the doctors early on in the first 3 years, I would be a dead man. But we believed at that moment that I was healed and that God had healed me. And so Mark 11:23 that Steve knows well is, whoever says to this mountain, be removed and be cast into the sea, and does not doubt in his heart, but believes that what he says will be done, will have what he says. And so how many times is the word says in there? I took it as, and even Proverbs 18:21, death and life are in the power of the tongue. So not only speaking life over myself and talking directly to the disease about God instead of talking to God about the disease, but also understanding that what comes out of my mouth I'm responsible for. And so everything changed for me at that moment.
Okay, so this is John's story. But the balance of this is that it isn't the story for everyone. And remember, this was, he was at a point where everything was going to be kind of messed up and destroyed if he went one way. And a lot of us, we come to that point where the treatment could kill us, whatever, and we make a decision, and sometimes we're healed, sometimes we're not. So we want to follow our doctor's advice. We want to have the best faith possible, but it's not always easy.
She said, we need to talk. She's asked me for the first time if I would consider myself a sex addict. I thought it was just about admitting the things that I had done wrong. I never had a clue that it was about redeeming our story. I thought it was just about coming clean on what I had done. I had no idea how to help her with her pain. She was a mess, I was a mess, and we got divorced. Going to EMB, surrounding myself with these other men, they accepted me for who I was and what I'd done, but they challenged me to step up and do better. They'll be around other men who are not just pointing the finger, but willing to get in and wade through it with them, get in the trenches. They'll get hope from this workshop. Take my sweet wife and my story. We were divorced, remarried, and on our way to what I think will be the sweetest years of our lives. It's no longer simply about surviving. For the first time ever, we're thriving, we're enjoying where we're at.
Hey, listen, if you're struggling, we want to see you at the workshop. Give us a call, 1-800-NEW-LIFE.
I was really living a very anxiety-filled life. I turned on New Life, and the topic that day was about anxiety. And just by listening, I got relief.
You can help New Life Live stay on the air by joining Club New Life today. When you sign up to support us monthly through Club New Life, we'll send you the Transformation Welcome Gift, which includes a personal-sized Life Recovery Bible, a Life Recovery Journal, and 5 Life Recovery Workbooks. Plus, there are ongoing benefits like access to the Club New Life video library, the monthly Club New Life CD or download, quarterly resources, free shipping on purchased resources, and discounts on workshops.
I did go to Take Your Life Back. That's been immensely helpful to to me. That's why I continue to support the ministry with the hope that not only am I helping my own situation, that I'm helping others as well.
Support Club New Life, and together we can help hurting people find help and hope in life's hardest places. Call 1-800-639-5433 to join Club New Life today. To find out more information about New Life or to order any of the resources mentioned on today's program, call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. Now back to New Life Live.
We're back. Steve Arterburn here. We are talking with John Tesh, and he's just had an amazing, miraculous outcome from his cancer. Really got to this desperate point and just said, we're just going to trust God and not do the treatments. And the title of the book, Relentless, Unleashing a Faith of Purpose, Grit, and Faith. And again, the balance of all this, and as John said, we had talked about this before, is that we want you to have the best possible outcome. So definitely going from worry and living into the diagnosis to putting the best possible thoughts and truths into your brain is better for everyone. Following doctor's orders, he did it all through that until he came to this desperate place. And just the reality that, you know, no matter how much faith you have, we're all going to die. And at some point, for some it's early, some it's late. And there are people like Johnny Erickson taught of no matter how much faith this woman has, and boy, does she ever have it, it wasn't God's plan for her to be healed. That's the balance. But the balance of this, you should never negate the reality that sometimes God heals in miraculous ways. And as I've shared with folks, one of my favorite stories is the atheist in Utah who was about to die, and then he has no brain tumors anymore. And it wasn't his faith that healed him. It was God's plan for him. And then a year later, he accepts Christ, and he's been serving Christ for a very, very long time. But this is a book, if you want the best hope in the worst of circumstances, it's all about purpose, grit, and faith in the worst of times, and it could really help you. Before we go back to John, Larry Sonnenberg's in the studio. Larry, let's talk a little bit about the need for new life during these times. We do have needs.
Yeah, we do. And Steve, before I talk about the needs, I just want folks to realize that we are first and most concerned about them and about you who are listening. We have opened up our Club New Life video library at no cost to anybody through the month of April. There's tons of videos there that will help you. We're looking at doing some virtual workshops, figuring out technology to see how we might be able to be creative and not just shut down workshops altogether. And we're talking to counselors who can do some telemarketing, some teleconferencing, and maybe by video, just so you don't have to go into an office. We're making some 10 tips available to you that would be appropriate, and we'll be sending videos out for links for you. So we want to do things to help right now, but donations have slowed down, and it's understandable. There's been loss of income and jobs by a lot of people, but we are grateful for the number of people who are signing up for Club New Life. It's kind of ironic, I think, the last 2 weeks we've had more daily signups than we had in the previous 2 months. So thank you for that. But if you are in a spot where you can make a one-time gift, or if you can join Club New Life, and that's not going to be appreciated just by us here at the office at New Life. It's going to be appreciated by people who now more than ever need the help that we offer to them. And God is honoring and blessing these efforts. So please do what you can. Make a gift, and let some folks who are really in some tough spots and needy positions and scared, and let us help them. Then your gift will do that. You can call.
Go ahead, Larry.
So you can call 800-NEW-LIFE. That'd be the simplest. You could go online and make a gift. You could put something in the mail to us. Whatever works for you.
Yeah. So call us, 1-800-NEW-LIFE. Join Club New Life, or a one-time gift. It really could help us during this time. And I think God honors it when we step out in faith, even in the midst of some very, very difficult times. Well, John, as we wrap up with you, your story is miraculous. And I want people to hang on to the truths, and I want people to change the way they're thinking, because Romans 12:2 says that we could transform our lives by changing the way that we think. That's the New Living Translation. Transform your life by changing the way that you think. And I think your story is so remarkable. Let's give some encouragement to people that are struggling during this time of crisis. Help them with some encouragement, because your whole life, I think, is a story of encouragement and never, ever giving up, persevering, resilience. So help some other folks that are struggling in that area of, hey, what do I do next?
Sure. And, I'm calling this, I've got, in the other room here, I'm in my house, right? In the other room, my 3 grandkids, 8, 6, and 3, are being homeschooled. My daughter-in-law, Janae, she is, Gibbs' wife, she is online with her 10th graders teaching chemistry. And then downstairs, Prima Tesh, my daughter, who's 25, she's teaching an exercise class on Facebook Live. And it's, sure, the first couple of days of this of the virus, we were like Sheltie dogs too. We were walking around in circles, and then we realized that our family's always been like this, as yours as well. Is you got to find a way to connect to a purpose, and that whether you're dealing with addiction or whether you're dealing with trying to find your purpose or a disease. And I love, I think of this moment as an Etch-a-Sketch moment. If you look back at the challenges that we've been through as human beings, even 2,000 years ago, right? It's in the middle of suffering, in the middle of a paradigm shift, to quote Dr. Stephen Covey. Amazing businesses are born. People come up with ideas for entrepreneurial ministries. And so when you think about, you've drawn this amazing detailed picture on your Etch-a-Sketch, and then your 3-year-old came along when you weren't looking and shook it all up, and now it's gone. That's the way I look at this, but I look at it as an opportunity. And you were talking about Club New Life, and that's that thing where when we're walking in circles, we're figuring, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And you're ruminating, you're not renewing your mind, right? You can't do it because every thought is coming. Having a purpose and having a piece of a ministry is an amazing start. And so whether donations are down or not, I'm a big fan of sowing and reaping, and so I want to throw it out to those who are listening to us right now. I know this ministry. I know Steve. I know New Life. It changed my life through my brother-in-law when Steve and his team helped when we went through the intervention with Vinny. And in the middle of my cancer battle, I became an addict, and I understood that at that moment, in the middle of the Scotch whiskey and the opioids, I could get anything I wanted. I was a terminal cancer patient, but I realized that I needed to fall in love with a different process. I needed to fall in love with a process that had purpose, and so I dragged my butt out of bed, and I was in the gym. Between every exercise, I'd be vomiting in the bathroom. But I had had YouTube videos in my ear. Of people, positive trainers and things like that, and understanding that if I didn't find it, I wasn't even interested in the goal. Right? I just needed to pick a process, and right now is your best time to pick a process that'll lead to greatness and that'll lead to a closer relationship with God and with your ministry too, Steve, because I'm such a big fan.
Well, guys, here's the book, John Tesh, Relentless. You send a gift of any amount, I'll send this book to you. I want you to have this book, and I think it's a powerful, powerful story of, well, the title's Relentless. John is relentless in his faith, and if God hasn't moved in your life in a miraculous way, don't you give up on God. He sure hasn't given up on you. No matter what you're going through, He's there for you. Isaiah 41:10 says, "Don't be afraid, for I'm with you. Don't be discouraged, for I am your God, and I will strengthen you, and I will help you, and I will hold you up with my victorious right hand." God does want to hold you up today. So don't be discouraged. I know it's not easy out there. If you need some help, it's 1-800-NEW-LIFE. You call us. We want to help you. 1-800-NEW-LIFE. God bless you. Stay strong. We love you. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening. We hope this program has helped you by giving you insights for handling the challenges you face in your life. We want you to know that we're here for you, but you also need to know that New Life Live is a listener-supported ministry. To make your donation or to get any of the resources mentioned on today's program, call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. That's 1-800-639-5433, or write to us at New Life Ministries, P.O. Box 1029, Lake Forest, California, 92609. Please join us again tomorrow for New Life Live.
Hi, Steve Arterburn here. Thanks for watching New Life Live on our New Life YouTube channel. You know, you can see it anytime. Hope you'll subscribe, and when you do, hope you'll turn that little button thing on, the bell, so that whenever we post a new video, it'll ring right through. Now, if you go to newlife.com, you'll see the schedule of when we're in the studio, which is helpful to know if you have a question for the program, or you could go to newlife.com or call us at 1-800-NEW-LIFE. You could do this on the app. I mean, there's so many ways that you can stay in touch with us and know when we're there, because we want to answer your questions. So thanks for watching right here on the New Life YouTube channel, and we'll see you next time. Click here to subscribe.